All right, hello, welcome back, everybody. PayPal and Patreon are down below if you want to support me. Only do so if you actually can. So it's time for the monthly OPEC oil production levels update, with the organization continuing to shrink. As always, a specific video about that will be linked in the description, along with appearing in the top hand corner right now. But anyways, getting right to it, OPEC's oil production cuts have been extended all the way through 2025, to the surprise of absolutely no one. Granted, of course, also almost no one is actually obeying those orders within the organization anymore, which are primarily coming from Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, who have maintained a average plateau of around 10 million barrels per day, they would be running into the end of their capability to maintain that around 2030 to 2032 or so, which kind of plays into the whole angle of why they want to keep permanent OPEC oil production cuts. That itself is another video altogether. But, anyways, under these constant, eternal production cuts that have been maintained for several years now, Saudi Arabia has maintained a lower level of oil production down at around 9 million barrels per day and occasionally going down to 8.9. This time they've gone down below 9 again, a bit lower this time actually, to a bit above 8.8 million barrels per day. Algeria peaked at 1.4 a while ago and had declined down towards 1 and started doing some enhanced recovery stuff and adding a few small new fields that was able to keep them from going under 1 for a while, but they have also constantly dropped down to 900 off and on through various levels of production cuts. And they are one of the only two members within the organization that are actually still obeying Saudi Arabia's orders, as they are still holding down around 900 like they're supposed to, coming in at 906. Next door, Libya continues gradually restoring its oil production capabilities and bringing itself slowly back up towards the levels it once held a long time ago. Now they're up around 1.28 million barrels per day. Nigeria used to be able to maintain a plateau of around 2. However, the degradation of their oil and gas infrastructure through embezzlement, government corruption, misdirection of funds, and thus not reinvesting any amount in maintenance and upkeep of said infrastructure, along with constant damage and sabotage to said infrastructure by different groups and gangs within the country, and damage to the oil pipeline network because of different theft rings operating within the country as well, they have seen their capabilities drop all the way down to only being able to hold as high as 1.4 usually. This time they're down at the same level as Libya at 1.28. The UAE held a plateau of around 3 million barrels per day. They wanted to and still do intend to hold one of about 4, and after this year, they intend to jump themselves all the way back up there. Under the production cuts, they're supposed to be down closer to something like 2.5. However, they've stopped obeying like most other members and have stayed up close to 3 at around 2.9 and are starting to creep their way upwards, this time coming up to 2.94. Kuwait is the one other member other than Algeria that is still following orders, and they normally also held a plateau of around 3 million barrels per day. However, under the production cut orders, they're supposed to hold at about 2.4, which they are obediently doing, coming in at 2.41 presently. Iraq is one of the ones who is most likely going to leave next in a matter of years, as they are effectively done because they could be going much higher, and they do intend to. They constantly hold 4.3 million barrels per day or so, and when they're supposed to be all the way down at 3.8 under the production cut orders. And they keep saying or insisting that they're going to follow the orders, and they'll start lowering their production down to like 4.1 and then abruptly do an about face and go right back up, which they are doing right now and have gone back up to 4.2, coming in at 4.19. Iran formerly held a plateau of about 4 million barrels per day, and under sanctions, they were only holding at about 2 because they weren't exporting any oil, so they only produced enough to meet their own domestic consumption. Now that the sanctions have ended, they were increasing their production. However, they've drastically had to slow that down because because a lot of their fields are so degraded and require gas reinjection to keep them pressurized. Become an issue because Iran's natural gas production levels are not exactly what they were previously a few years back, as things within the country have rapidly begun to degrade to the point that their natural gas production levels actually fell below their usual domestic consumption, and now they are having to import additional gas from their neighbor Turkmenistan, which has given them just enough additional natural gas to use for reinjection to bring their oil production a bit further up from 3.15 million up to now 3.25 million barrels per day. And Venezuela once held and could hold a plateau of about 3 million barrels per day for the entire century. However, they collapsed internally in the late 2010s, and when countries go down, they usually take their oil production down with them. So Venezuela dropped all the way down to only 400,000 barrels per day. And they've maintained a pattern off and on of letting some outside oil industry in, usually Chevron, and said outside oil industry is able to recover Venezuela's oil production back up close to a million barrels per day. And then Venezuela abruptly kicks them out. And to the surprise of no one, their oil production precipitously drops after doing that. So Venezuela has now had their oil production recovered back up to 922,000 barrels per day. All right, that's it for this one. So thank you everybody for sticking around and listening. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't already. PayPal and Patreon are down there if you want to support me. You'll do so if you actually can. There's a link in the description to a Google Drive folder with docs full of all kinds of graphs, data compilations, charts. That's free to access and it's there 24/7. A link to my catch channel will be in the top pinned comment as well. May God bless and protect you all, and I will see you all around next time.